What a great job. We love Ruth. Hey, we're in the series called Stepping Stones. It's the idea that there is a path that's laid out for you to follow in the hopes it's going to take you to a good place. Christians have stepping stones. We're looking at a series of passages in Matthew's gospel about steps, choices, decisions, actions we take in our walk with Jesus Christ that will lead us closer to God. Help us to experience Christ, the extraordinary that he wants to do. Now here's the thing. Not every path is an easy path. Think about this. This is called Angel's Landing. It's a 5.5-mile round trip. It takes you 1,500 feet into the air. And there are portions of the trail that just plummet off to the side on both sides. You literally say that you literally feel like you're walking a tightrope as you're holding on to the chains. And you might think like I think, why in the world would you want to do that? There are portions with the switchback trails and the thin trails where you have to stop to let other people pass because it's not wide enough for two people. Why would you do that? Because they say the view is spectacular and the challenge is worth it. It's like Christianity. That's what we're going to talk about today. The path isn't always easy. Sometimes it's really hard. If you do it right, it may even feel dangerous at times. But the view is spectacular. So I want to talk to you about that today. Here's what we're going to do today. We'll talk about marriage, parenting, and careers. And we're going to talk about politics again. And then today, I want to share what I believe is the most difficult sentence in the Gospel of Matthew. It is the sentence by which everything that you struggle needs to be defined. And I believe that in the Christian journey, it's the overarching principle that defines whether we truly follow Christ or not. How's that for a start? Let's pray. Kathy gave me the thumbs up, so that's a good sign. All right. God, I just want to take this moment. I want to give it to you because it's not mine. I yield it to you because I want you to speak through me, Father. I want you to speak through me with power, Father, and conviction and clarity, a message, Lord, that just brings hope to people and direction. Would you give us the courage to receive it, Jesus? In your name I pray. Amen. So let's start with some stepping stones. This was last week, because the passage we look at today comes right off of last week's. It's okay if you weren't here last week. Quick summary. It's that Jesus is just asking his followers, we call them disciples, who do people say I am? Then he comes to them and is like, but what about you? Who do you say that I am? And Peter shouts out, you're the Messiah. You're the Son of the living God. We call it a confession. And when the first stepping stone we looked at is that you need to make a confession of faith. It's not just a private thing you'll hold on to. It's an actual statement that you make in front of other people, and you're saying, I'm willing to let you hold me accountable to that. It's a commitment, right? And we do this all the time. We do it all the time. We make confessions when we say, I do at a wedding. We make confessions when we say, I'm going to have kids. We make confessions when we accept a job. I'm going to do this job. But what happens with every confession, if it really is a commitment, it's going to get tested. We've all faced those moments. You know, with your marriage, you're like, oh my gosh, are we going to make it? Or with kids. Whose kids are these anyways, right? Or with a career. Man, I never thought it was going to be this hard. Your commitment is tested. Matter of fact, there's a theory that says every commitment has to be tested to know that it's truly a commitment. Otherwise, it's just something that you do. So this is what we're going to look at. Jesus is going to test that. From then on, Jesus began to tell his disciples plainly. So this is right after. Peter's made this wonderful declaration, and it says from then on. So Matthew is saying, everything changed with Jesus for us. Matthew's gospel is going in a different direction now. From then on, Jesus began to tell his disciples plainly that it was necessary for him to go to Jerusalem, that he would suffer many terrible things at the hands of the elders, the leading priests, the teachers of the religious law. He'd be killed, and on the third day, he'd be raised from the dead. Jesus is saying, guys, here's the plan. so that when it happens, they wouldn't be caught off guard and afraid like, oh no, everything's falling apart. Right? Which is exactly what they did. But Jesus wants them to know, I am not caught off guard by this. I am not surprised by this. This has been the plan all along for us. It does not make any sense whatsoever to the gang. Because if you're the Messiah, the Son of the living God, why would you walk into the Capitol and put yourself in the hands of authorities that want to kill you? Why would you do that? That just doesn't make any sense. And I know that they didn't get it because look at how Peter responds. Remember, Peter was the guy who just said, you're the Messiah, the Son of the living God. And Jesus was like, whoa, only God could have told you that. And on this rock, I'll build my church. We talked all about that last week. Now, Peter, I love Peter. He makes me feel good about myself. Peter's a hero to a zero, right? And then he goes from a zero to a hero. And I'm like, amen, brother. Thank you for being my role model, right? Boom. Peter took him aside, began to reprimand Jesus for saying such things. Heaven forbid, Lord, this will never happen to you. Because remember what we said last week. What Peter was saying, he didn't truly understand. He was using his perspective. And I told you it was really important where all this is happening. This is all happening in a place called Caesarea Philippi. It is not in the nation of Israel. It's like going to another nation, right on the other side of the border. Very big metropolitan area. In the midst of all of this, were all these religions of the world and the worship of the government. They had shrines to Caesar. The people of the day literally worshiped their political leader. A matter of fact, you know what Caesar was called in his shrines? The Son of God. So, I mean, this is a big deal when Peter says, you're the Son of the living God. Not only is Peter making a big deal declaration, but he's putting himself on the line because it was your patriotic duty to worship Caesar. Can you imagine a country where people worship politics and consider it their patriotic duty? Evan, I don't know. I can't think of any place like that. Can you? No, right? Okay, but this is what's going on inside of Peter's mind. He's like, look it, you're the leader. You're the guy with power. You can make change. People are willing to follow you. We can improve this nation and bring back the glory days, but not if you go into the very jaws of the lion and give yourself up. That's not going to happen. Stop thinking like that. And Jesus says something that people write lots of books about. Jesus turned to Peter and said, get behind me, Satan. Wait, I thought it was the rock. No, I'm Satan. You're a dangerous trap to me. You're seeing things merely from a human point of view, not from God's. Jesus knows exactly how Peter is thinking. You know what I think Jesus said this? Because I think Jesus was tempted like this somewhere else. Because I think when Peter's like, look, dude, let's not do this. Jesus is like, wait, I've heard this before. And we read about it in the very beginning of our journey with Matthew, right at the very start of his ministry. Jesus goes off in the desert and he prays for 40 days. And who's he encounter? He encounters Satan. He encounters Satan 3 times. And one of the times Satan says this. The devil took him to the peak of a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. I'll give it all to you if you'll kneel down and worship me. You know what Satan is saying? I'll build a human empire for you. I'll give you all the political power you need. I'll give you all the military might you need. You know what? We could weave politics, power, and religion together, and we could rule the world. You know what? That is disastrous. It's been disastrous for Christians for the last 2,000 years. Whenever we start to think that political power, military might, or the connections to the right people will bring about the change that we're looking for, Christians always hit the wall because what we're saying is we don't believe that prayer, faith, and the communities we call church are the true power to change the world. We're willing to trade God's power for human power, and the struggle is human power is inherently corrupt. And whenever the church has done that, whenever Christians have gone that route, they've always led to disaster because it slowly begins to corrupt them. They start to chase the power, the influence, the wealth that the world has instead of what God is calling for them and the true power to change the world. It always ends up corrupt. You know what ends up happening? Christians or churches start looking that the world should be serving my needs rather than I'm here to serve the needs of the world. And Jesus understands that. He sees the worldview in his disciples. He's about to say the most difficult sentence he's ever said to them, probably will ever say to them, and he's trying to confront this worldview. And this is what Jesus says. If any of you wants to be my follower, you're going to give up your own way, take up your cross, and follow me. And I'll bet you the disciples went, say, what? Let's take it apart. If any of you wants to be my follower, you're going to give up your own way. Other English versions of the Bible use the word deny, but it's not just like deny, like, oh, I don't like that. Deny, the special verb that they use for deny, they're going to use again later on in the story when Jesus is arrested and Peter is standing outside the place and Peter vehemently denies knowing Jesus. Jesus is saying, you want to follow me, you're going to vehemently deny yourself. You got to look at yourself and the way you're pursuing the world and the way the world says you pursue it and how the world says that you should find significance and value. You should be careful about all that. And you need to say, it's not about me anymore. It's not about me. It's about Jesus Christ. Because Jesus Christ knows the future. And Jesus is like, I can't be everywhere in the world all at once. I'm locked into one geographical spot, and there's going to be a day I'm going to go back to the Father. And what I need is 2 billion little Jesuses walking around. Not 2 billion Mikes and Peters and Gales and Lauras. I need 2 billion Jesuses walking around. But are you willing to look in the mirror and say, everything I've been chasing my whole life, I'm willing to deny that. I don't know Mike. Mike doesn't exist to me anymore. I despise the old Mike. I belong to Jesus. But look at, to do that, he says, you got to take up your cross. And the cross was horrendous to the first century world. The cross was horrifying. Not only was it publicly humiliating because you were crucified naked in front of the world, it was a torturous way to die that often we think, because we look at every Easter, Jesus died in a few hours. Most people, it took a few days to die on the cross. Matter of fact, there were stories, legends, about the Roman armies when they would want to take a city and maybe they were light on resources, they didn't want to waste soldiers. They would take a bunch of captured slaves or soldiers from other places and they would crucify a bunch of them in front of the city gates where everyone could see, and they would say, this will happen to you unless you give up the city. And the legend said that they would just yield the city because it was so terrifying to them. And now Jesus is like, look, you want to follow me, you got to take up your cross. Because that's what Jesus knew he had to do. In order for God's plan for humanity to come about, in order for his kingdom to be introduced, and for God's power to be released, he had to pick up a cross. So Jesus is saying, you got to be like me. Maybe that God's call on your life is going to be hard. It's going to be really difficult. It may feel torturous at times. It's going to be scary if you're going to do it the right way. But Jesus is saying if you're going to really vehemently deny who you are, you need to die to who you are. You need to give that way up. Because to Peter, he's saying, Peter, your way is not power. It's not the power to change the world. The cross is the way to change the world. And I know that doesn't make sense to you, Peter. Someday it will. And it did, because you know the legend of Peter, how he died? He died on a cross. But Peter was one of the only people hung upside down because he didn't consider himself worthy to die in the same manner as Jesus. Because Peter discovered that Jesus was right. The power was in the cross. If any of you wants to be my follower, you got to give up your way, take up your cross, and follow me. Jesus wants to be the leader, and he wants you to be the follower. He wants you to give up the steering wheel. Jesus, take the wheel, right? But honestly, he doesn't want any backseat drivers. Jesus said, are you willing, really willing to follow my direction for your life? Are you willing to change your plans? Are you willing to go in another direction? Are you willing to take up sacrifice? Are you willing to do the hard thing? Are you willing to look at the world differently than the way the world looks at itself and the way the world says that you pursue value and pleasure and power and influence? Are you willing to let me lead you? Because otherwise, what does it mean to be a Christian? Don't take the name if you're not willing to let Jesus lead you. It's hard, really hard. Put it all together. You know what Jesus is saying? He's like, guys, I don't want any weekend warriors. I'm not interested in I go to church on Sunday and I'll see you next week. I'm not interested in Christians in name only sort of followers. I'm not interested in, wow, this was really hard. I'm just going to kind of put Jesus on the shelf for a little while. Because Jesus is challenging us, right? We like Jesus when he makes us feel happy. We like Jesus when he gives us what we want. We like the stimulating worship of a nice, climate-controlled, beautiful worship center. We love the guy on the platform when he speaks because he's so thrilling. I'm only kidding. Break the tension, right? We love the music. We love what my kids like about church. I go because it's good for my kids. That's not what Jesus is looking for. You know what Jesus is looking for? Jesus is looking for people willing to change their lifestyle. People who are willing to open up their calendar. People who are willing to invest their energy. People who are willing to be generous financially with others. Jesus is looking for people who are willing to stand up and claim that they know him. Jesus is looking for people who are willing to put their needs aside to meet the needs of other people. Jesus is looking for people who are willing to talk about faith because of its importance to someone else's life. Jesus wants you to examine your relationships and to ask the question, does this relationship really help me fulfill this verse? Jesus is looking for people who are, maybe I've been pursuing the wrong college, the wrong degree. Jesus is looking for people like, well, you just finished college, and is that really the right career that you should be pursuing right now? Jesus is looking for people who are saying in their careers, like, why are you chasing the money? Why do you just want people to look at you differently? Why do you want that power? How do you know I don't want you to serve someplace out in the shadows? Jesus is looking for people who say, you're going and you're going to retire. Awesome. What are you going to do at that time? You're going to coast now? If anyone wants to follow Jesus, you got to deny yourself, pick up your cross, and follow him. And this is what the first church did. They believed it. They believed in this command. It took time because it didn't make sense. It was scary. It challenged them. But listen to the words of one of the greatest leaders of the first church, Paul, a man who devoted his life to being the best at what he was pursuing, the best in his career, most respected in his community, violently committed to preserving his way of life and approaching God. And this is what he would write: my old self has been crucified with Christ. It's no longer I who live. Christ lives in me. So I live in this earthly body by trusting in the Son of God who loved me, gave himself up for me from prison. How's that? His choice to follow Jesus led him to prison. We think that his choice to follow Jesus ultimately led to his execution. Sometimes it's a literal cross. Sometimes it's a call to give it all up to enter into ministry. Sometimes it's a call to leave your home country or a place of comfort or a great salary or a wonderful home to go somewhere in some place in the world to really pursue Jesus. Sometimes I think that when I die, who's going to get the loudest cheers and the most celebration? People we don't even know about. People serving in areas of the country where they were living off of a couple of dollars a day in order to bring the gospel to other people. People who are doing ministry in obscure areas of the United States without a lot of recognition, but they chose to do it because they just said, okay, Jesus, if I'm going to deny myself and I'm going to pick up my cross and I'm going to follow you, where are you going to lead? And it changed their life. By this point, if you're wise, you'd be like, why in the world would I want to do that? Right? Honestly, you got to think this through, right? I mean, why in the world would I want to do this? 2 reasons. If you try to hang on to your life, you're going to lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you'll save it. Do you want life as it was meant to live? Let's think this through. Who designed life? God. And so if God designed life and Jesus is calling you into this, Jesus is like, I want to call you into the life as God has designed it. I want to give you life. Because this is what happened. When Jesus took up the cross, we forget the last part of what he said to the disciples in the very beginning of this whole story. And 3 days later, I will rise from the dead. They're all focusing on the cross because this is what we do. Jesus, you want me to give up my reputation? Jesus, you want me to give up my wealth? Jesus, you want me to give up my relationships? Jesus, you want me to give up my house? You want me to give up my kids? You got to be kidding me, Jesus. We're focusing on the cost of the cross. And Jesus is going, did anyone hear me say back to life in 3 days? That's the power. So we celebrate Easter for. It's remembering that through the cross and the grave came the resurrection and the power and the life everlasting. And it's not just a life that takes you into eternity, it's a life that starts today. It's this amazing thing because it's the life that brings you the transforming love of God that is beyond human comprehension. It's the conquering hope. When you're going into the MRI tube, or you're outside the courtroom, or you're in prison, or you're facing death, it's the peace that passes all understanding. When everyone else is looking at you like, why are you not falling apart? And you just feel the peace of Christ. It's the joy that carries you through the tumult and out the other side, from the highlands to the heartaches. That's Jesus offering you life. Go pursue it. I love what C.S. Lewis said. You know what we are? We're like kids. Because we're like, hello. Let's start some worship, baby. It's the highland and the heartaches. What was I saying? I was talking about Jesus, right? Okay, yeah. Yeah, you know what? It's the love, it's the joy, it's the peace, it's the hope. Thank you, C.S. Lewis. Finally, we got there, didn't we? I love what C.S. Lewis said. C.S. Lewis was like, we're little children who are content playing with mud pies because we can't imagine having a vacation at the beach. Right? And what he's trying to say in the midst of this is like, look, all we're focusing on is the cost. And we're not thinking about the reward. The powerful, vibrant, beautiful, life-transforming, inspiring, thrilling reward. We're content to play with our mud pies. That's why we have the cross. But there's another piece to it. And what do you benefit if you gain the whole world but you lose your soul? Is anything worth more than your soul? For the Son of Man will come with his angels in the glory of his Father and will judge all people according to their deeds. Jesus is like, there's a lot on the line here. You are not a biological mechanism with electrical impulses that stimulate neurons to give you a personality. You are a living being. And in that body is a soul. It's the consciousness. It's who you are. It's the dreams, the desires, the passions, the heartbreaks, the memories. Everything that has forged you into what you are is your soul. And Jesus is going, you're so afraid of losing the finances and the home and the relationships and the pursuits and the ambitions and the goals and the desires. Have you ever thought about losing your soul? Have you ever thought about losing your soul? This is the place where we talk about that, because you don't have a lot of conversation about that outside of here, right? But Jesus is saying you can lose the most valuable part of yourself unless you follow me to find life. Because there is a day of judgment. Jesus says it. The Son of Man will come with his angels in the glory of the Father and will judge all people according to their deeds. And here's the secret. No one is acquitted. Whoa. What do we do with that? No one is acquitted because we're all guilty. We've all failed. We've all sinned. We've all fallen short. So how do we survive? How does our soul survive? Just told you. Deny. Give it up. Stop trying to do it yourself. Stop trying to pursue the ways world to life. Die to that self daily. Follow Jesus. Now, this is a heavy message. If this is your first time at Faith Community Church, God bless you. Wow, you walked into a big one, right? Here's what I would encourage you to do. Come back next week, right? Don't give up. It's like, woo, I think I'm going to take a rest. Right? Don't do that. God brought you here for a reason. Sit on it. Stick it in the back of your mind. Maybe come back to it later. Just let it sit there for a while. Like I say, let it percolate in your brain for a while. If you've been coming for a while and you've really been wrestling with Jesus Christ, there is a point where Jesus Christ goes, is there a commitment or what? How long are we going to date until we get married, right? Jesus is like, come on. And maybe you're at this place where you got to stop coming just to here and you got to start getting to a place like Starting Point where you could really dig into what it means to follow Jesus Christ, to understand that commitment. Because Jesus wants thoughtful followers, not casual ones. But what about those of us who said, yeah, hey, you know what? I'm in, man. I've been denying myself, picking up my cross and following Jesus. Have you? How's the past 2 years been? How's your social media presence? How's your Monday through Saturday? Have you drifted from Christ? Would those who have met you in the last 2 years even know that you're a Christian? What are they receiving from you? Is it Christ's love that they're picking up from you? Are you worshiping politics? Are you worshiping money? Are you worshiping your career? Are you worshiping your children? Are you worshiping your reputation? What would they pick up from you? I really do love when Luke told this. So Luke, there's 4 Gospels about Jesus, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And this passage is in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. But when Luke writes it, he changes it. Because Luke was a physician who chose to accompany Paul on a journey of spreading the gospel by planting churches. You know what I think Luke picked up hanging around Paul and going through some real incredible experiences and facing the hardship and watching Paul get arrested? I think Luke picked up, you got to pick up your cross daily. It's not a one-time thing. Because in your journey with Jesus Christ, he's going to challenge you. Not all at once. But he's going to challenge you, and then you're going to walk with Christ, and he's going to like, hey, let's take a deeper challenge. And, wow, you're going to struggle with that. He's going to walk you through that, and he's going to say, let's do an even deeper challenge. You go, whoa, I'm going to walk through that, and he's going to take you through an even deeper challenge. And he's going to say, you're still willing to carry the cross. Where are you with Jesus Christ? So this morning we have communion. We've got 1, 2, 3 in the back. We've got 2 in the front. There's gluten-free alternatives. There'll be ushers here to give you the elements in a nice, safe manner. But they'll give you the elements in a nice, safe manner. But I hope that what you heard me say today is following Jesus isn't always safe. It's great. It's good. It's full with life. It's got love, joy, peace, and hope. But it doesn't always feel safe. Maybe today you need to take a dangerous step in your journey with Jesus Christ. Maybe you need to finally do it for the first time, to surrender yourself, to choose Christ, to pick up the cross, to follow him. And you can do that at a communion table because you'll never forget. Every single time you take communion, you remember you did it at a table. And if you do that this morning, I want to meet you because I got some advice to help you on that journey. But for everyone else, look, if you don't know where you stand with Jesus Christ, don't take communion. This is a safe place to not do it because it's about the commitment. But for everyone else, where are you? Where are you with Jesus Christ? On the night that he was betrayed, Jesus took bread and he gave thanks. So Jesus, I give thanks to you because I could not do this journey without you. From the heartache to the highlands, Lord, I could not walk a step of this path without you. Thank you for even coming off your throne to sweep away my failures and to lead me through them to the other side. For leading me to that river of grace that flows upward from a deep and empty grave. Thank you. So he took the bread and he broke it. He gave it to his disciples and he said, take and eat from this, all of you, for this is my body, which has been given for you, the cross that he had to carry for you to find life. And he took the cup and he gave thanks. He said, take and drink from this, all of you, for this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins, that you could find life through the death of Jesus Christ. Where are you with Jesus Christ?